What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. Power line today is kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg.
I'm joined today with Parker Pursell. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing awesome. Great weekend, rested up, and excited to be on with you.
Awesome, good stuff. So for those of you in the audience who haven't seen any Chance Encounters before, what we do is we have commercial real estate investors on the show and we ask them, which of the 5 different motivations I've found best resonates with or describes their situation. And then I go through the 6 different roles in taking down, operating, or flipping a commercial property. And I say, which one of these is your core competency? What's your contribution to the group? But this is, main thing that's a common thread in everybody who comes on here is that they do want some level of success. And I do think in order to get there, you have to be able to effectively introduce yourself. So Parker, could you please introduce yourself for the audience?
Yeah, my name is Parker Pursell. I work with Damian Lupo and the EQRP company, and what we do is provide a self-directed 401k for individuals to be able to invest in alternative assets with complete control.
Excellent, excellent. So he's out there to help different investors. So if I pull this up, we can come to the first segment in our show here, which is the motivation piece. A lot of newbies, they know their motivation, but they don't know the role that they'll play. So that's why I go through this first. So the first motivation I found why some people want part of a new apartment complex deal is that they want to preserve their purchasing power. Inflation's going nuts and it's the hottest real estate market in history. So that's because a lot of people are afraid that inflation is going to wear away at their nest egg and then the party's going to be over. So this is particularly for people whose wealth is their main vehicle for their income. So family offices, this would be a slam dunk as far as their motivation. The
Correct.
next one is my one, which is that I realize as a high earner in tech that I can have my high salary, but then I have to pay income tax on it before I can actually invest it and put it in the form of wealth. So if I pivot like I have to be a co-GP, then that means I'm being rewarded for my effort and my time in the form of wealth, which makes a whole lot more sense to me. So that's my reason. The next one's the most common reason, which is people are trying to fast track their retirement. There are a couple things that are implied in that. One is that they've already started accumulating something for their retirement, so they can make some capital related moves like being perhaps an LP or put it directly into their co-GP situation. But the other thing that's implied is that there is an end in mind, which is not having to hustle anymore. So these guys are a little bit different from the next group, which is the super ambitious people who want to buy their entire hometown. So the people who are interested in fast tracking their retirement, it's entirely possible that once they become an accredited investor, that they're going to pump the brakes and say, it's like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to live on a beach and, just don't call me. I'm just going to disconnect my phone and everything. Whereas these people who want to buy their entire hometown, they're going to keep on going and going and going into their 90s because they want to have the biggest yacht in the pier, so to speak. And that brings me to the last one, which is in some ways you could say it's the opposite, but many people have a sector of society that they really want to help out specifically. And then the commercial real estate deal, it's basically to augment their wealth. And they realize that that is a great vehicle for making a difference to a sector of society. After all, you don't see many hospitals named after a librarian or something like that. If you want to build a library or a hospital for your community, you're going to have the dollars and cents first. So a lot of people are taking that route. So out of those, what's your main motivation, Parker, or combination?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember all the first ones that you put on there, but I'd say the biggest one is to I'd say wealth preservation. You have two types of individuals, I think, that are interested in a plan like this. You have those that are really wealthy that are trying to preserve their wealth, or then you have those that are looking for an advantage to grow their retirement, right? So there's only two different types of people, and we can serve both. So Dave Zook talks about it, and it's really kind of a interesting and understanding your, when I say investor portfolio, because somebody like myself who's really young would be the one that's looking to grow, but somebody who's older, closer to retirement is going to be like, how does this help me with taxes? And we can answer all those questions for them.
Excellent. So that's the service that you'd have to other investors. So next up, let's talk about. We already have the answer for this, but this will be handy for any people who are prospectively going into real estate. One of the biggest things that I know you solve is finding that capital that you already have and being able to deploy it into these assets that will outperform, say, going to the bank or something like that. But
Correct.
but first, we're also going to get into who you can help more than anybody else. So it's important to go through these different roles.
Yep.
So I'm getting a ton of glare here. Oh yeah, that's not bad. So let's talk about repositioners first. That's the one that I help more than anybody else, because part of being a repositioner means that you're in acquisition. So you're looking at lots of different properties. You're looking at all the paperwork, and you're looking for upside. Okay, so it's the acquisitions person, and also just underwriting the whole thing. But there are two ways that people generally get upside. One is through more efficient operations. Okay, so that means reducing your costs, running more efficiently. But the other parts of operations are like bookkeeping or marketing to make sure that the vacancy is really, really low. So those are your operations piece. Now, of course, right now we're in the hottest real estate market in history. So that's probably not going to cut it for the repositioner to have sufficient upside. So the normal way to ensure that is to get a contractor team, so you actually make the apartment units nicer, and that way you can charge more in rent. And there's one problem with that, though. Like contractors, you can spend as much money as you want, but you have to make sure that nobody's cutting any corners. The operations person, maybe they're qualified for that, but probably not. But regardless, you are going to need a local. You're going to need the boots on the ground, especially if you're like me and you're from the internet. You need somebody who can actually be there in an hour or two, because that's not going to be me. And they got to be able to make sure that operations are actually doing their job, and the contractors are actually doing their job and keeping the schedule. So when the repositioner has those in place, they turn around to the financier, in other words, the bank or the capital raisers or whatever, and they say, hey, I want to buy this asset that's worth like tens of millions of dollars. So can you lend me like tens of millions of dollars? And they'll say, okay, let's take a look at what you got here. All right. And but who's your sponsor? And that's the part that slams a lot of beginners, is they don't realize that somebody, if you want to get a loan for these buildings, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset. So even if you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, then if you want to buy a 350 unit apartment complex and get a loan for it, then somebody in the fold has to already own a 350 unit apartment complex. So these are the 6 different roles here. It sounds like you have some roles in financier side, but so which core competencies do you have that would it be helpful to real estate investors?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the financier piece, right? When your active cash is tapped and you still want to get in on a great opportunity, then most people don't know that you can access your retirement to be able to invest in things like real estate, crypto, other alternative assets, right? And so I'd even, especially right now with the whole IRA market about to blow up, with Congress coming in wanting to dismantle it, I think the reposition, you could use that word in a sense, because we're going to have to be serving people who have self-directed IRAs and looking to move that into another vehicle, thus positioning them in a better tax code when it comes to investing in real estate, but then also changing all the documents, you name it. But for us, our goal is really to help educate people as well, these investors, that once they're tapped out of their cash, right, the common thought is, well, I'm just going to use my retirement to sit in the stock market, mutual funds, you name it. But we want to help educate them and say, why don't you take that knowledge that you have already in real estate and you know the returns, like you're putting your active taxable income in a position to give you some good passive returns, right? Why don't you take your retirement and make the same returns tax-free? And they're like, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely. So that's how we play a role in majority of the deals that happen.
Excellent, excellent. So you mentioned that that tax-free part, and I think there's also some tax-deferred elements as well. Is there not? Have I got that wrong?
Yeah,
Maybe
so you can essentially have a traditional Roth, and this is a 401k plan, right? There's other aspects to K-Roths. If you have kids, you can set up accounts and put in $12,000 in tax free and write it off yourself, which is awesome, right? So those are being able to escape the UBIT tax that comes inside of IRAs with any debt that's leveraged. That's one big caveat that people don't know about that are doing real estate investing through an IRA. So you can mitigate that by putting it in a 401k vehicle with better control, and to be quite honest, better returns, where you could take that taxable event that you would be paying and then put it in another syndication deal, which I'm like, why wouldn't you do?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really beautiful thing. So usually, what I end up asking investors is like, "What's your ideal property or your buy box?" And so in this case, is more a matter of what's the ideal client as far as like what sort of numbers are we talking about where working with you makes sense? Like if they've
Mhm.
only got $500 in their retirement fund, I don't really think it's worth getting in touch with you. Nothing personal,
Yeah,
but
no,
like,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Well,
what sort of range?
I think being able to say no, like I wouldn't say that we're for everybody. Somebody who values control and then values personal responsibility, I think are the two big values that we bring in with the type of client. Secondly, there's two ways that you could put inside this plan, right? You could roll over other retirement accounts that you want to utilize, or you could contribute. So if you're a small business owner with employees and you have this massive income stream that you want to put away, defer taxes, right? But also be able to invest that into alternative assets, they would be a great client. But somebody who's just starting a retirement account, they have a W-2 working for somebody else, this is a great thing for them, but it wouldn't serve them well enough like it could 10 years from now, right? It's not a matter of no, it's just no, not now.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
but I think if you've got a, you know, 1099 income stream, or you own a business that's producing a lot of income, it's a good plan for you, and it's retirement, right? So you got to think about it in a macro, not a micro. I'd say the micro, $500 in your account and you don't have any sort of other income you're generating, probably not going to work out. But if you're producing $15,000-$20,000 a year on the side through a 1099 hustle, and you're still doing a W-2, and you have maybe a $50,000, I don't even like putting a number on it, but if you have an old retirement account that you want to move in, I'd say it's a great fit.
Right, right, right. Okay, cool. So that gives me a pretty good idea. It was reminding me of a joke that I've been trying to fit in one of my pieces of content, which is that in real estate, everybody's looking for people who are fantastically rich and dumb, and unfortunately, I'm neither. And that's the joke. Maybe that's why I'm not more popular. But anyway, we met through some meetups, and I got to those meetups through LinkedIn. Is that the best way to reach out and catch you, or is there a website that's better, or what is it?
Yeah, connecting with me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. You can go to our website, www.eqrp.co. That's an easy way to go see what our uh, products about, what we do, our service. But LinkedIn, honestly, I'm on there all the time. Dan, I know you're on there all the time. That's how I basically manage my online relationship. So reach out to me on there.
Excellent, excellent. And for those of you in the audience who don't know me well, my core competency is in the tech background. So the main roles that I'm having is in helping the repositioners streamline their acquisition funnel. So basically, helping people underwrite automatically and flag certain properties and things like that. And then the other one is on the operations piece. Obviously, I'm a marketing guy, but the other thing too is that programming and software and technology can really streamline those. So those are my things, maybe some capital raising sprinkled in there. But those are my core competencies. But you in the audience, I have a big favor to ask, which is under my left hand here. It is my left hand, I promise. You'll notice that there's a red button that says subscribe. And that sucks, really. What you should do is you should click on it and then it'll turn gray, which is way better because that means YouTube pays for this content instead of me. Isn't that better? So anyway, it doesn't cost you anything. All it does is it means that maybe my videos will show up in your list of suggestions, but it does mean that YouTube will pay me for these videos. But Parker, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.